Hello and welcome to the Scenic Route. My name is Victoria Stewart, and here we talk about roads less traveled and/or all of the what maybe had felt like detours or a veering off the highway that we have all been through in our lives, and having the many different examples of what a life can actually look like, that it doesn't have to look one specific way. And I am very excited today to have Leslie Ellen Mathews here. I'm going to let her introduce herself because she is an amazing, multi-passionate, and all about it, that I would love it to make sure we capture everything. So Leslie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited when I saw your podcast and what it was about. I was like, oh, this is really cool and I need this. I definitely took the scenic route and none of it was a detour. Every stop handed me a thread that I didn't know I needed. And now my work is really weaving those threads together and pulling the threads I don't need, which is a huge, huge part of not only my work, but the work I do with people. I am a therapist and I am also a coach. I help people with relationships, divorce, breakups, and many, many other things. As a therapist, my focus is on EMDR and internal family systems, which I am so passionate about. I offer a lot of intensive work with people instead of like a traditional long talk therapy program. And then as a divorce coach, I have programs to help women really with a lot of different aspects. I am a former attorney, and I spent a lot of time during my own divorce doing my CEUs in family law. So now
Mhm.
that really inspires a lot of my work with women who are going through the breakup and the divorces, people who are trying to decide if they want to get a divorce, even couples who are discerning whether they should or shouldn't. And
Mhm.
so that has all come like full circle from my very first major in college, which was social work. So I also teach women, primarily women therapists and coaches, how to podcast, which is I call it my side gig because it's super fun. But we'll get to why and how that evolved because I have my own podcast as well. So
Yes.
doing lots and lots of things. I think it confuses people, and it definitely has concerned many people in my life throughout the years. They're like, "When is she gonna actually do something?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm doing all the things." And it all came together, and I don't think there was any way to predict where I would be now based on my route, but looking back, it all makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Hindsight is 2020, right? It might feel so complicated and confusing as you're going through it, but then afterwards you're like, I needed all of that.
Yeah, yeah, and every single thing that I've done, every passion I've had really does contribute to exactly where I am right now and where I'm assume that I'm going. So it's fun. It's fun.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And so I am curious. You said that your very first major in college was social work. Where did you see yourself going? Where did you think you were going? Was there
I
the right way? This is where my life is going, that you thought was going to happen?
I thought so. So I had wanted to be a doctor when I was growing up, but I came from a really small town. Girls, especially girls from a family like mine, we didn't have a lot of money. My parents were divorced, which was less common then. Um, I was really paying my own way. So going to medical school was not encouraged. I even had high
Hmm.
school counselors say, you're not going to be able to do that. So when I went to school, I started in social work, but my intention was to be a medical social worker. So thankfully, the social work program would have you do two things. They would have you go in and do a class where you would get exposed to lots of medical type positions, also in rehabilitation. Uh, the other thing was they'd have you do an internship right out of the gate. So in my
Ooh.
first year of school, I went into the VA and I did living wills of all things, because we'll get there. But like eventually I ended up doing living wills again in law school, in my internship in law school. So that was eye-opening, and I knew right away that I was comfortable in the hospital setting and that I liked telling people, like informing. And again, hindsight, now I look back, I'm like, oh, I liked walking into the room and talking to people and informing them about these living wills and why they needed them, and then walking out and being done. But I quickly switched majors my second year and started on a speech pathology path and even transferred schools and fell head over heels in love with neuroscience. I had already kind of chosen science. I also grew up thinking we needed to be on one path. So I was like a lover of singing and performing and even photography from a little girl. I have pictures that I would pose my stuffed animals with a backdrop, but I never saw any of those creative outlets as having potential for career. I think when I was pretty young, like probably 10 or 11, I realized science. Like I'm good at science. I love the body. I like biology. That's the path I'm going to take. So push these other things aside. And so when I got into speech pathology and I realized how much neuroscience there was, like I loved the brain. I fell in love with the brain. And I also then took my first job, which was working with people with brain injuries and trauma in a really big academic medical center, which means like some speech pathologists go in and they spend weeks, maybe months with people doing therapy. I was more of an evaluator and an informer in
Hmm.
that regard too, because I would walk in, do swallowing evaluations, speech and language evaluations, and motor evaluations of people who just had either a brain surgery, a brain injury, trauma, or a new diagnosis of a neurological disease that was probably pretty bad because of the institution I was at. We got the worst of the worst.
Hmm.
So again, I wasn't in the trenches working with them and going through the therapy. I was telling them, educating them, this is probably what's going to happen. This is what we want to do. This is the plan moving forward. And really in with the doctors, even informing doctors, like, this is what I see. That was, to me, like, that really lit me up. I felt in my element in that environment. And so now that I know I'm a manifester and that informing is really what is the most aligned for me, it makes
Hmm.
sense. At the time, I just knew I liked that. I liked looking at their charts and digging in and then going and telling them this is what I see. And something about that felt really good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool. And
that
for
was the
people who
beginning.
don't know, that's you mean a manifester in human design.
Yes. Yes. Do you know human design? We didn't talk about this before. Are you familiar?
Just like a surface level.
Okay. Manif Manifestors
Go ahead.
are a little more rare in the population. So human design is similarly based on things like astrology. It's just a little more in depth, a lot more in depth. And there are lots of aspects of our design which we do not have time to go through. But I was introduced to human design probably 5 years ago, and I went to this retreat type of environment. And when they told me I was a manifestor, I had no idea what that meant. But there are generators, manifesting generators, manifestors, projectors, and there's one more, and reflector. And so most people in the population are generators and manifesting generators or projectors. And reflectors are really rare, and
Yeah.
manifestors are about 7 to 9% of the population. So we, by human design terms, like, we aren't worker bees. Like, we're not the people who are going to be doing the work. We're constantly getting creative urges. That's what we call them. And then we go out, act on the urge, and then inform and move on.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in every part of my story, where I'm doing that, it lights me up to even talk about that time period of my life. Every
Yeah.
period where I found myself in a situation where I was just there to do someone else's work or do work for
Mm,
someone, it was not, it didn't feel aligned, it felt very uncomfortable for me. And now I kind of know why. At the time, it came off as more of feeling more like a failure. Why can't I do this? Why am I bad at this? It couldn't hold my attention. Yeah.
yeah.
So I
It's so in.
left. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's so interesting when you learn something like that, some framework about, whether it's your personality or your design or any of those things or how you make decisions, that you can start to like give yourself a little bit of compassion or understanding
Yes.
of like, why did this happen? Like, why was this so hard? Or why was always things always changing? Or you can stop beating
Yes.
yourself up about, because like, I'm an emotional decision authority, right? Which means I need
Right.
to let the emotions ride.
And I am.
Most,
Yes. You've got to ride the wave. Yeah.
yeah, and most of us are. That's the most common one. But our entire society is like, you need to make a decision like that. And we need
Yep.
to just wait. And most of us need to
Yes.
just wait. And I'm not,
Yes.
it's like, oh, once I knew that, I'd be like, oh, why am I so excited about something? Why am I so depressed about, like, unhappy about it?
Yep.
Like, I'm like, oh, it's
Right.
normal.
You
You
got to
just have
ride the
to ride the
wave. And then
wave.
when it feels calm. So my boyfriend is a generator and he's splenic or gut sacral. And so he's a gut, so it's a yes or
So
no, an uh-huh,
jealous.
uh-uh. And but it has helped us tremendously to understand each other because he
Yeah.
is an uh-huh or an uh-uh, and he's also a people pleaser. So a lot of times in the past, he hasn't listened to that. So he's learned to
Mm,
listen to it. And I've learned not to push him to switch, right? So not to
yeah.
try to change his mind. Like if he says something is a no, then I've got to respect that. And that's a huge boundary for us. But he has to understand I can't make the decisions like that. I do
Yeah.
get emotional and I do need to ride the wave. I need to let things sit for a little while until the water calms. So it's really interesting and helpful, I think, to understand not only yourself, but I know my kids, all three of my kids are either generator or manifesting generator, and they all have the sacral. So very different. Very different from me, but it's good to know.
Interesting. That is so
Yes,
interesting.
yes,
So, going back to kind of like this learning, digging in, informing, and then moving on, what was your next like step? Like what was
yeah.
the next step on your journey?
The next turn, the next detour was
Mm-hmm.
so I was working in this big academic medical center in St. Louis, Barnes Jewish Hospital, Washington University. I knew at that point I was still playing with that idea of, gosh, I really want to be a doctor. Like I'm working with these
Mm-hmm.
neurosurgeons. I love what they're doing and the neurologists, but I didn't necessarily want to put in the time. And at that point, I was a single mom. I had had my son when I was 21, and I needed to be responsible and be able to take care of us. So I went into a research lab, a functional MRI lab. So I was still getting the neuroscience even more in depth, but I became a research assistant, and that was interesting and I was learning a lot, but I was just doing work for the scientists who were studying the brain. And so that wasn't really a great fit for me. I eventually switched over to work with an occupational therapy professor, and that was a lot more fun because she was utilizing my background. Like she wanted that we were doing what's called aphasia research, which is when people lose language after a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became part of the decision-making process and I felt a more of a part of the team. And I was trying to decide, do I want to go back to medical school or get a degree in neuroscience or neuropsychology, which would have been a great path for me. I met who became my husband,
Mhm.
and a lot was happening in the world. I was still seeing rehab patients. The laws were changing. Obamacare or ACA was kind of being proposed. And in
Mhm.
Missouri, where I lived, people were losing access to benefits.
Mhm.
So I felt really drawn to the cause. Ended up completely pivoting into law school and health law. I met a nurse who had become a lawyer who was a professor in the law school, and she was really an inspiration. And I thought, I'm going to get on this journey and I'm going to do policy work. And so I went back to law school. I studied healthcare law. I also got a master's in health administration while I was there because why not?
Why not?
I thought, I think I realized really early in law school, I'm probably not going to practice traditional law ever,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I thought I probably need to get this MHA. My my personal life, I was really becoming attached to my husband to be, and he was a physician. So it made sense to like, okay,
Mhm.
I could always end up working with doctors and doing that
Right.
kind of law. And I loved all of that. Honestly, I loved being in law school. I loved learning. I met wonderful people. We were all kind of passionate about public policy and access to care. And I worked in a big hospital system there that was really worried and like working towards access to care for people. So I felt inspired
Mhm.
and I loved that. And then we moved to Florida. And then we moved to Florida. My now ex-husband moved down a year early, right when I had my daughter. So I had a daughter my last year of law and MHA. I mean, it's
Why
the
not?
epitome of burnout. Like I burnt myself out in 1 year taking
Yeah.
a massive amount of credits to. I also at that point had a 13, almost 14-year-old son who was
Mhm.
a very big club soccer player. So life was
Very busy.
busy, like busy. And a newborn, I went back to my classes and she was 3 weeks old, and my professors did not know. I didn't want to tell them that I had a 3 week old. And my husband moved to Florida a year ahead. So, like, that year was now I know it was like a pivotal year for us and for me. A tremendous amount of resentment was building because I was doing so much on my own. I had to sell our home in St. Louis. By the time I got to Florida, yeah, it was a lot. And then I immediately went into studying for the Florida bar, which was not fun
Mhm.
at all. But we did live on the beach for a year so that the kids could at least have a Florida life. And
Mhm.
I worked for a year in law, and that's it. Uh, very unexpected pivot and a life-changing period of time for me in that I now know, and I knew then too, but I was willing to set it aside that my career and my purpose was really so tied up in my identity and why I'm
Mhm.
here. Like I've always known
Yeah.
that. But we lost a baby while I was still in the law firm. My daughter was struggling. She was only a year and major attachment issues. And my son couldn't play soccer, which was the thing he loved. So I took a step back and said, okay, we want to have another baby. This isn't healthy. And my now ex-husband was working like 18, 20-hour days, like sleeping in the
Wow.
hospital.
Yeah. Being a
Somebody had
doctor
to
is
be a
hard.
parent. Right.
Yeah.
Someone had to be a parent. So we had to make a really hard decision, or I had to make a hard decision to step back. And I never really bought into that. Like I never really bought in. But we had my son, we had my third child a year later. That helped tremendously, but was traumatic. It was a traumatic birth, like a lot was happening. But that's when I took another detour and I took up photography, which
Mhm.
again, like looking back as a little girl, I literally lined up my Care Bears and my Cabbage Patch dolls and took their photos. And I always had a disposable camera in my hand in high school, right? Like We didn't have a lot of money, but I was always taking pictures. So I really embraced that and I became like the sports photographer for my son's soccer teams and I started taking pictures at school. It allowed me like an entryway into the school for the
Mhm.
kids and it gave me purpose and like for the first time like a love for my creativity.
Yeah.
I could finally step out of this science identity and say science and law, right? Which
Yeah.
law never quite fit, even though I loved it. Um, I loved learning. And
Mhm.
so then I'm like, wow, I'm a photographer. And that was really cool. It was fun. I started traveling the world a couple times a year and just absolutely fell in love with the camera and videography, which I didn't know would help me so much where I am now, but it
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So each pivot makes perfect sense now, but at the time, my husband, my best friend, people around me were like, "You're not going to go practice law again? Like, what are you doing?" The debt alone made no sense,
Yeah.
right? Like paying for law school. And at that time, like, it just felt like I flushed something down the toilet. Like, I did it, and I think that the message I was receiving was, "You're so irresponsible for not doing something with this." And at the same time, everything in my body, I was really beginning to, like, listen to my body and just I just started to trust the universe, like, "This is gonna work itself out. Something's coming." Um and so I went all in on photography and raising my kids and becoming one of those like super volunteer moms
Mhm.
and being a stay-at-home mom, which I hated saying,
Mhm.
but now, again, like I think since I was very little, I've always told myself whenever anything happened that felt uncomfortable or was traumatic or something really bad happened, I would say to myself, there's a reason I needed to experience this. I've always felt that way, but especially in my 30s and 40s, everything that happened, I was like, there's going to be a time when I'm going to need to know what it feels like to be a working single mom, a stay at home mom, a woman leaving an affluent marriage, um, all of these things, right? Someone who has to step away from her career, someone who's doing these big pivots, trying to find her way, trying to trust herself. Those were all things I needed to experience, and I did. And now I do sit across from people who are in the shoes I had on at some point in my life. And I can understand where they're at so much better than had I not experienced it.
Yeah. That's so key, right? To be able to
Mhm.
help somebody. It's like you need like the actual having the personal experience for them to really
Yes.
feel like you understand is huge.
Yep. Yes.
Is
Yes.
huge.
It's really huge. And so, the next step, if you don't mind me telling you,
Yeah,
was
please.
was really, if I'm being honest, I started planning my exit strategy. I knew I had become really lonely. Those 18 and 20-hour days never changed for my ex-husband, and then he was also traveling a lot for different device companies and stuff. So I was very, very lonely. I always was like very romantic in my mind. So I
Mhm.
always had this dream of a romance, and that wasn't what I was experiencing at all. I was raising kids by myself, and we were, in some ways, living our best life. We live in Florida, we could go to Disney all the time. We had financial security that I had never experienced growing up. I grew up from a struggling single mom as well, working in a factory. So, from that standpoint, it looked really good from the outside where I was. but I didn't feel good. I had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 11, and that would come and go. And I would say during most of the marriage, it was pretty bad. Like I had to take biologics, and that never made sense because I had gone into remission before. But I think just the level of unhappiness from just being lonely, being
Mm-hmm.
in a very lonely marriage, um, the RA would flare. So my son also, my youngest, had a really bad sensitivity to chemicals and dye. So I took
Mm-hmm.
an interest in functional medicine. Our pediatrician was transitioning into functional medicine. I did a health coaching program for us more than anything. Um, and I started taking my law CEUs to keep my Florida bar standing in
Mm-hmm.
family law. Because I was like, I probably need to understand the family law system because I'm pretty sure I'm leaving. And then I started therapy and I went to a women's retreat that was life changing because I was pretty much in a fog at that point. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like who I am really. I'm not enjoying even the photography as much as I should. I would
Mm-hmm.
be like in Norway on a photography trip stewing about my husband and worrying about him instead of taking it all in. And there were moments where I was like, I just, I'm not even present. And I didn't have all the vocabulary for that yet. But
Mm-hmm.
in photography, I started realizing I'm in these beautiful places or I'm taking these beautiful photos. I fell in love with butterflies and flowers and started gardening. And sometimes I would be working on a photo and I was checked out someplace else. So I started realizing I need to get in the moment. Um, and then in therapy, I started getting introduced to meditation. And I think your path is similar. Meditation and mindfulness-based stress reduction definitely has played a huge, huge role in getting me where I am. And it's a huge part of what I do with people now because it was so instrumental for me. So the health coaching, getting us all in a healthier place and understanding the rheumatoid arthritis and the impacts of being in an unhappy relationship,
Mm-hmm.
of be how impactful that was on my immune system, uh, how much eating and sleeping and exercising and all of these things, even consuming things on the internet, were playing a role in
Mm-hmm.
my body. And so that got me to, like, I would say I've gotten us now up to the end of the marriage. And all of that, as well as some spiritual work. I had a lot of shame around religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I met this beautiful friend now named Ashley, and she did these tea ceremonies. And I realized, wow, like I'm a very spiritual person. I'm just not a religious person.
Yeah.
And so that opened a lot of space in me to explore a part that I always knew was there, but had never had the words for. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and then I have a really cool story. Ashley told me in a tea ceremony about 7 months before I left. I was really like, how am I going to leave? How am I going to do this? Where are we going to go? How am I going to have a place to live? And had already been working on like instilling trust in the universe with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she said, a number's coming up, like seven. The number seven is coming up. I don't know if it's 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 years, 7 months. Um, but something is just, your guides are kind of telling me that this is going to be much easier than you think and that you don't need to do anything right now. You don't need to
Yeah.
prepare. It's just going to happen. And it's going to happen so easily that you won't even see it coming. And I was like, okay, well, I have two choices. I can continue suffering, or I can trust her and the universe. And I'm doing that because that's easier. And
Mhm.
Sure enough, we found mold in our attics in our home, which had been making us even more sick. And we were forced to have to leave. And at the same time, my now ex-husband was getting ready to go for back-to-back trips. So it allowed the kids and I, we had to move out. We
Hmm.
had to find an alternate place to live because we were going to have to rip out all the ceilings and fix up the house. And it allowed me to just take like a lot of time and space to get us settled before he even came back. And so there was no planning. It was just all of a sudden, we have to leave. We have to. And
Yeah.
so I didn't have to worry about finding the money to find a place to live. We had to pay for a place to live because we had to leave the house. That that then really put me on the road to even more therapy because I knew, okay, this is going to be hard. And bringing in the mindfulness-based stress reduction and taking those classes or those courses, just it started clearing things. I kind of knew at that point that I wanted to become a therapist or something like a therapist. And I didn't know which path to take. There are a million paths to becoming a therapist. And I would get lost in the weeds of that, like social
Hmm.
work or counseling or marriage and family counseling. Which program do you do? And MBSR, I was in a 3-day silent retreat online, and one day it was like I had a vision of being in the forest and there were red and orange leaves all over the ground. And all of a sudden, the leaves just parted and there was a path forward. And it was social work school. And it was as corny as it sounds, like there was never another moment of doubt. It was like, oh, this is the way. Okay. But I don't think I could have gotten there or seen the path and felt confident in the path without all of that meditation. Like I had to get really quiet and really
Yeah.
present. And I know that's part of your story too. I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, your first solo episode, I think, where you talk about how
Yeah.
much of a role mindfulness and meditation have played in your path and your journey. And like, I literally talk about it every single day with my clients, like every day. And sometimes there's some convincing and sometimes not, but it's life changing. And of all the detours and pivots, it is one of, if not the most important one that I made was to take that. And as soon as I finished my first group, I joined the teacher track at Brown University to start. I was like, I'm going to teach people this. I don't know what else I'm going to do for sure, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
teaching people this because this is incredible. The ability to manage stress through a divorce. And I was also in an accident during my divorce with a friend who ended up in a coma. Getting through all of that. 2022 was the worst year of my life because of those two things happening, but it was also the most transformative because of MBSR. So yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing like how hard it is to allow ourselves to be quiet and still,
Mhm.
and how valuable it is to take the time to allow your imagination, your intuition, whatever it is you want to call it, to bubble up, and it'll help you get clear, right? Like if you
Yeah.
don't take that time, there's so much noise all the time.
So
So
much
much
noise.
noise.
And we are missing the signals from the universe a lot of times, but they do come
Hmm.
back.
Yeah.
They circle back when they're supposed to be in our life. If something is supposed to be with us, it will be. It'll come back.
Hmm.
Um, Social work left me
Came
when I was
back.
18. It came back. And, you know, yeah, there's so many synchronicities in my life and so many things that I was open to, and I didn't know exactly why. And now it's like, oh, thank God I learned how to use a camera and do videography,
Hmm.
because podcasting and teaching people how to podcast has been so easy for me using Canva,
Yeah.
like all the things that I used, all the software. Like a lot of people are really intimidated by that. AI, even. It's technology is not scary for me. Uh, and that's just because of that window of time where I had to dig in. I had to learn Adobe. I had to learn how to edit. Um, but at the time, I would have never guessed how I would be using that now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. So how did you go from social work, clinical social work, to now what you're doing now? Because it's a bunch of different things, which
I
I
am doing,
maybe is like because you're giving yourself permission to be
yeah,
who you really are.
I am. I can't remember when in the journey it was, sometime while I was in the divorce process, so it was probably in 2022. I read a really
Mm-hmm.
great book about, and I started following a podcaster who talked about multi-passionate, being a multi-passionate.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt like such a relief to know that I wasn't the only one who would get these urges to go deep on something and fall head over heels in love with it. And then, like,
And then that was
still
that.
continue. Mind compound. Well, mind compound, according to
Yeah.
her, there are different types of multi-passionate. Some keep collecting passions, and that's me. And then some get passionate about something and then they move on to the next thing. I am a collector.
Mm-hmm.
So also during COVID, like I bought my son a little caterpillar from Amazon that was going to
Mm-hmm.
turn into a butterfly. By the time we got fully locked down, I literally had giant net home butterfly houses inside my house, raising monarch butterflies. Like so, and if you came to my house right now, you would see my whole front yard is planted with butterfly flowers,
Yeah.
and they're everywhere. Like they're everywhere. So I don't get rid of my passions. Like I still
Mm-hmm.
have my camera. I still love taking photos. I still love the butterflies. I still love neuroscience. I've just somehow found a way to put it all together now. And I guess to answer your question, like what all am I doing? So
Mm-hmm.
I have three websites because what multi-passionate can only have one. I have my kind of my own brand website, which is
Mm-hmm.
where I offer up like speaking and things like that. But most importantly, my podcast courses live there because
Mm-hmm.
I've done so many deep dives. I'm teaching people how to podcast. I'm writing articles about SEO and like all of that because I feel like I can get super nerdy about everything there. And I run these cohorts with therapists and coaches. And this summer, I'm adding teachers to the cohorts to teach people how to create their own YouTube channel or podcast. And it's so fun because we do it in a group and it's all
Mm-hmm.
these very similar kind of personalities. People who are either afraid to use their voice but want to, or they're afraid of the technology, or all of the above. But then we all support each other through the process. Super fun. So that's kind of business one. One
Uh-huh.
side. I call it my side gig, but it gets a lot of my attention too. I have my therapy practice where I see clients. I do internal family systems and EMDR primarily. And I do a lot of work. ChatGPT has been helping send me a lot of clients who are in their 30s who are going through breakups. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know how ChatGPT realized that I specialize in that, but it did. And that is such great work. I really have a lot of understanding from my own experience of trauma bonds, and a lot of the women who find me just happen to be going through trying to get out of really trauma bonded relationships. And so I have become really effective and helpful in that realm. My therapy practice is working with people at that and anyone who wants to unprogram something with EMDR or IFS or work through a hard transition. So my therapy practice does have a fair number of people going through divorce too. Then, in addition to that, I have a coaching business. And because of the law, like we can't have dual relationships. So you have to
Mhm.
either be coaching somebody or doing therapy with them.
Yes.
So the coaching practice also is very heavy in breakup, divorce, and relationship. Um, Something I haven't mentioned is I did find someone right after my divorce was over. We were really apart for 2 years, and that was 2 years of deep healing and growth. So as soon as my divorce was over, I got on Hinge for the first time, that's a whole nother conversation. Dating in your
Yes.
late 40s and never having used a dating app before. But I found my now boyfriend. We've been together for 3 years, and that has been its own journey. And I've learned so much about myself, and I've grown tremendously in ways I couldn't have in without a relationship. But in that, I have learned a lot about how to teach people how to understand each other better, how impactful it is to understand your partner's nervous system and their human design and all of these things. So, my coaching is relationship coaching for people who maybe things aren't going great, but we want it to be better. People who are either thinking about going through or post divorce in that whole process. Um, and then people who are going through the breakups too. So I have a program called Through, and that's for women who are contemplating and ready or who are going through the divorce process. And that I do individually or in a group, and I love that work. So essentially, I built a program that I wish I had when I was
Mhm.
going through my divorce.
Yeah.
And it's so, there's so many things people think they need when they're going through a divorce. They want to talk about finances and child, like parent time and parenting plans. But none of those big important decisions can really be made well if our nervous system isn't intact. And so I built a program that helps people with all different aspects, like from how to choose your attorney and how to save money with your attorney, to how to prepare your nervous system for court day, to how to talk to your partner, how to pleasure yourself to get through the divorce without making a big
Mhm.
mistake. So it's an 8-week program that is extremely robust, and it has me written all over it because it's very multi-directional, I guess you would
Mhm.
say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm doing all of those different things right now and podcasting in addition to that. And my podcast is called Pulling Threads because it's about unprogramming, like
Yeah.
all of these old programs that were given to us that we don't need. Either we created them in ourselves or our culture or our church or our family gave them to us. And so, yeah, life is really busy but full. And as a multi-passionate, I can't imagine doing one less thing. And if I could add one more, I told you before we started, I
Mhm.
would be doing the
Yep.
golf work too. I took up golf 2 years ago, and I absolutely love, love, love like the mental part of the golf game. So yeah,
The next journey, right?
it's the next. I keep saying it's my retirement plan. I'm like, I'll end up doing like EMDR performance, sports performance for golfers, and I have like a this vision of myself walking along people on the golf course and coaching them while they're golfing. So yeah, someday. Well, I'm not
It's
sure when.
amazing. That is
But
so
I
fun.
think, yeah, I think people listening are probably like, oh my God, like how is she doing all of those things? And how did the detours just keep coming, right?
Yeah.
Um, when they were coming, I think this is important. Like there was a lot of shame around that. There was a lot of, why can't I just stick with something? Or why can't I just commit to this? And I am committed now. I'm committed to kind of all three aspects of my business in a really beautiful way. But to get here, like I needed to be uncommitted to all of those other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Uh,
I guess I'm curious, like so most of us end up staying with something much longer than we probably should. Was looking
mm,
back now at your life, was there ever like a sign or that's like, okay, it's time to shift direction? Or is there something like some advice you could give people on like, hey, feel into this?
yeah, I think staying home, like being a stay-at-home mom, I
Mm-hmm.
stayed there too long and there were lots of signs. And I was, the rheumatoid arthritis was acting up.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of, because of that acting up, I did get put on prednisone for a while and I had a lot of rage around that, which was not my personality at all. Uh, I was not always the best mom. Like I would yell. My kids now will say, "Remember when you used to yell?" Because as soon as I started meditating, that stopped. So I would say I got pretty low. Like my rock bottom was during that window.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think when you start feeling foggy
Yeah.
or if you start losing clarity, you start losing yourself. It's just so hard. It's like drinking too much. Once you've had a couple, you can no longer see what's happening to you. So I did start losing myself. I felt like I was living very inauthentically. I didn't like who I was at all. I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. I didn't like my body. I didn't really like, I don't want to say the people I was around, but I didn't like the way I was
Mm-hmm.
engaging. I didn't like
Yeah.
the way I was engaging. I was trying to enter groups, friend groups, or situations that weren't really me, and I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, but I was pushing to get in there anyway. So, yeah, there were lots of warning signs. I would say that because the most important people in my life at that time around me were not multi-passionate and they didn't get me. My ex-husband, my best friend at the time, like we were so different
Yeah.
that I was also shame spiraling because they were like, "What are you doing? Like, go get a legal job. Like, what are you doing? I can't believe you're not doing this." So, yeah. And
If you
I
could go
was kind of,
No, I was just going to ask, like, if you could go back to that version of that yourself, then, like, is there advice you would give her? Because I'm sure it would resonate to people who are going through a similar thing right now.
yeah, I would say trust yourself. I started, I think throughout my life, there were periods of time when I would farm out my own authority, right? So rather
Hmm.
than trust myself, I would seek out people to tell me what to do, um, which is not a manifester thing to do at all, but it's something in order to make the people around you feel more comfortable, which is what I was kind of trained to do. You ask people, what am I supposed to do? What do you think I should do? I stopped trusting myself and I stopped listening to myself. And I started doing what I thought I had to do or what I was told to do. And that is so contradictory to who I am by
Hmm.
nature. And at one point, someone said, "You don't see yourself at all how you are." And that was true. That was a little bit of a wake up moment for me in my mid 30s to have a friend say, "People see you very differently than you see yourself." Because I think now in retrospect, like I had completely lost sight of myself. Um, it was like I was living somebody else's life and I didn't feel like I belonged in it at all. And so, yeah, had I would say, well, I'm a huge proponent of therapy, obviously.
Hmm.
I didn't grow up in a time period or an area of the country where therapy was a thing. Like you only got therapy if
Yeah.
something was really wrong with you. So I lost my job lost a baby and had moved away from my entire family and friend network. And at no point in my 30s did anybody, including myself, think maybe she needs to talk to someone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
nobody. So, my number one advice would be if you're feeling off, like, talk to someone. There
Mm-hmm.
are many different types of therapists and ways that you can get help. And the options are so much more expansive now. Like, you don't have to do talk therapy forever. You can go see somebody who can work with you and work on a trauma and move you through a block really quickly now. So I think therapy or a coach, getting help beyond your friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
because we do have a tendency to put people in our lives who hold us in a negative place sometimes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I had done. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing so
Oh,
vulnerably.
thank
And as
you.
we close, is there anything that you want to share with the audience or point them to a specific resource? We'll put everything in the show notes, all your different websites, because somebody will be like, oh, that's the one for me. But
Yes, yes.
is there something you're really excited about right now that's lighting you up that you would really love to share about or talk to people about?
I think that I'm excited about everything that I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are two voices people like me have in their head, or maybe more, a lot more. Um, the one I wish that I never listened to my entire
Mm-hmm.
life is, who do you think you are? Now, I think it's okay to think big, right? It's okay. It's okay to think big. I still have that voice come out and it'll say, who do you think you are, Leslie? Like, you think you're going to write a book. You think you're going to do this. You think, and my response to it is, I think I'm the girl who's
Yeah.
going to write the book. I think I'm the girl whose podcast is going to blow up. I think I'm the girl who's going to help women get through this hellish process better than I could. I think I'm the girl who's going to get people podcasting who wouldn't have ever had the strength or the bravery to do that. So that's what I'm excited about. Like, I'm excited about being the person who says, I hear you, voice. I hear you. Who do you think you are? I think I'm all of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we live in such a tricky time. Like, there's so many dualities, right? We don't want to be a narcissist, but we kind of think we are supposed to be somebody, or we kind of think we're supposed to have a big impact. Well, go ahead and try. Who cares if you're a little more narcissistic than you used to be? And if someone labels you that, like, do the thing, whatever it is, just do it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We all fail. Like, things don't work out. It's okay.
Yeah. It's an
Um,
experiment.
everything is an experiment. My therapist during my divorce, Michelle, used to say, well, we're collecting information, right? And that was in regards to dating. And along those lines too, like, if you are a romantic person and you want someone who's, you know, super romantic and wants to hold your hand all the time and tell you how beautiful you are, find that person. Like, anything is possible if we just believe that we deserve, right? If we believe we are capable and we believe we deserve things, you can have anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like,
And
I'm a Pisces too, so I'm a big dreamer. Like, I'm a big dreamer, but why not? Why
yeah,
not? It's fun. It's
it's
fun.
fun. Yeah. And
Yeah.
right now, with the AI and like all of the information we have at our fingertips, you really almost can do anything.
You really can.
Anything.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. As from a entrepreneur business standpoint, I would say my one piece of advice would be dig into AI. Like, Claude
Yes.
is literally changing my life every single day. And it's never been easier to create things and have an idea and have it come to fruition, like, tremendously. I actually am launching a trauma bond workbook with meditations and somatic practices probably in 2 weeks. And uh, how quickly I've been able to put that together with Claude and Canva and my virtual assistant has been incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we can
so amazing.
impact and inform people like never before. So, and podcasts like yours are helping people share their journey to inspire other people, which I love. I love it.
Yes, me too. They were like my gateway
Mm.
drug, opened my mind to
Yeah.
like the possibilities, right? Like it's just like,
Yes.
and I think people think, well, what's my story or what's my perspective? Yeah, but you're going to resonate with there's billions of us. Of course, you're going to
Everyone
resonate
has
with
a
some
story.
people. Yeah, like,
Everyone has a story.
and it's so important to share that they all look different. We,
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
one path. We all
Yeah, and
think
you're
that there's
right.
a right way, but it's your way.
No, I think I'm proof that there's no right way.
Mm-hmm.
I could have taken many different detours to get right here. I like all
Yeah.
the detours I took. I did stay in kind of a down place for longer than I wish I had. But again, like that's what I needed at the time. And that's what got me here. And you're right, everybody's story has to be different, but every single human being's story has the ability to inspire someone.
Yes. Yes. There's always a piece that
Yeah.
resonates, right? Like, and you're like, oh,
Yes.
wow, that's amazing. Well, that's so
Yep.
cool. So
Yeah.
thank you
And a
so
lot
much
of
for
us
being
are
here.
like, thank you. It
Yes.
was wonderful. Thank you so much.
And like I said, for everybody who's watched or listened, if you want to learn more about Leslie and her amazing offers, we'll put it all the links in the show notes. And go listen to her podcast. She has it on YouTube. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So there's so many places for her to impact your life with learning. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you so much for letting me share and ramble on about all my things. It was so fun.
It
Love.
was delightful, delightful. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And if you like the show, subscribe, like, and we'll see you on the next one.